Bafwetu, welcome to another installment of Fama, your number one platform for all things farming. Whether you're a seasoned agriculturalist who just wants to know new trends, or somebody who just wants to come in the game and wants to know what to do and how to do it, or maybe you're just one of those guys who just wants to know where their food comes from, this is the platform for you. So we all know, black people and animals are like this, ne? I'm talking about cattle, sheep, goats. I've never been to a black farm where I haven't seen an animal with 4 legs. But then again, how do you make sure that your productivity goes up when it comes to raising animals? Because the whole idea of this is to make money. So we're going to be talking about productivity and increasing it on your farm. In studio with me, I have Khomotjo Mashiloane from RMIS. Who's that, Otaga?
Good and self, Tammy. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah.
Great.
You don't have to lean to the mic.
Okay.
So, Khomotjo, Otaga, let's start. Before we start formal business, tell me a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up, and also how did you enter agriculture?
Okay, I grew up in around Denalton. There is a village called Mpili in that side. Kebapedi, that area. Yes, so I grew up in a family that was more into agriculture. They were doing their crop side, planting and so forth. And at the same time, we had some livestock, but we're keeping them for subsistence. And then we had some goats on the other side. And then at some point, I remember when I was starting to do grade 9, I had to choose a stream. And I saw agriculture to be a good way to go. And I did science, and agriculture was one of the area of focus. And then along when I got to grade 11, I think at home, we had the goats. They started to die off, and I didn't know what is a problem with them. And that's where the area of focus started to change towards that direction. And we had no help and so forth because we had no connection maybe with vet or extension officers in that other area. And that's something that made me to say, okay, let me follow this path and be an animal scientist. Then I went further. I studied animal science at the University of Limpopo. Then from there, I furthered my studies to do a master's in agriculture, which I'm currently about to complete at the moment. And that's where the love and focus started to, grow from there. But also on the other side is that at home, they also ventured into broiler production. And as an animal scientist, we deal with mainly production animals, which is cattle, sheep, goats, pigs and chickens. So yeah, that's where my area of expertise lies into.
So the difference between animal scientists and vet,
Okay, as an animal scientist, you focus on production animals, as I've indicated, and to a certain extent, they also do game animals. But from our side, it's about productivity and making money. While you look at the health side, they're more into ensuring that the animal is in good health and is well taken off, so at the end of the day, can be productive. But the focus, it's not much the same, because with animal health, we from our side as animal scientists, we don't know in detail in relation to their disease identification or diagnosing and so forth, while on the other side, they do in detail about different diseases and with different species. Yep.
That's what I like about agriculture. It's got a lot of careers. Eh?
Definitely, they do.
It's got a lot of careers. So let's say now, technically now you are almost like an extension officer type of thing.
Definitely.
So let's say now, give me a scenario. If you go into a farm, let's say a farmer calls you, what would your typical day be like? Especially, let's say that guy
okay,
like cattle. So what would your typical day be like for that farmer?
All right. First thing is that in most cases, looking at the sector that I'm looking at, emerging sector, most of the farmers, they will call you when there is a need. Other than that, they won't be able to call you unless everything is fine. But if, let's say, now they start to see that an animal is sick, that's where they'll pick up a call to say, oh, Khomotjo, I have this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, can you come and assist me? But the first thing that I'll start to ask them will be, what are other symptoms that you are seeing? Because sometimes a farmer will just say, Khomo, param, and that's all. So they don't know all the basics on, maybe you need to look at the head. What is wrong with the head? Maybe the animal started to show symptoms earlier, but you start to see them now. So we start to look into those things to ask the farmer to guide him in the right direction. Then after then, if the animal doesn't get better, we go to that farm and we see how we can help him with our technical advice.
And what other methods do you guys do in order to keep farmers in the loop in terms of raising their productivity?
Okay. We have different training materials that we are using to, when I go to the farm, I give them something to educate themselves on it. And then also, currently where I'm working, we also do a webinar whereby farmers, they engage on, let's say, monthly interval. And then they are the ones that they tell us which topic of interest they're interested into it. Then we address based on that.
You know, I got a DM last time from a guy, surprisingly in Limpopo.
Sure, Limpopo way.
Yeah, what is it? Habiskralo or something. Go, hi man, go ma vending.
Okay.
You know who has a vendor? I'm like, bro, I don't understand what you're saying. I don't speak Sevenda.
Yeah.
And he says to me, Mfetu, Khomiaka is nale the spot. Like,
yes.
the pimple. I'm like, pimple?
Pimples,
He says to me, like, my cow has pimples. Only to find out there's lumpy skin disease.
Sure.
So, like, give me an example where you went in, where the farmer actually called you and said, listen, I have a problem. And then you get there and you're like, this is actually a train smash. It's not just a problem.
Yeah.
So there's lots, ne?
Yeah, it's a lot. But I also give a typical example is that a year before last year, we had a scenario with the same problem of lumpy skin. It was a community. So they had an outbreak, but the time when they realized that it's an outbreak, it was a bit too late. And that's why they say, Khomotjo, how do we solve this? Lumpy skin is a virus. There is no way that you can treat that. Instead, you can give it a supportive treatment. So if you give a vaccine, you're using it to prevent the disease from occurring. Then from there, we found that those farmers, they took the injection, and with the lumpy skin vaccine, they injected all the animals. By doing so, they spread even to other animals.
So they use the same needle?
They use the same needle, and they spread the disease to those other animals that were not even infected.
That's a problem that I find with a lot of small-scale farmers. And I'm not generalizing. I've seen it personally. Lack of information, my bro.
Lack of information, definitely.
That's what's killing them. So that's why they can't be productive. So what other methods do you guys do in terms of giving people information? Like I see sometimes les panalebo fafa.
Yes.
So yeah, tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, we are engaged in different platforms. So like the Farmers Days, we are there. That's also another platform for that 30 minutes to an hour. We share specific information on that day. But we also work with farmers on like study groups. So the cooperative or the co-ops of the deep thing, it already exists in around the country. And then because it becomes difficult for us to say we are going to KZN just only to see one farmer. It becomes highly cost effective in that way. But we are promoting the issue of unity. So once only unity, because when we look at our communal farmers, you find that they have 3, 5 cattle, 7, and so forth. When we look at the system that you're operating in, you find that lumpy skin vaccine has 20 doses or 25 doses. So if a farmer buys that, let's say 20 doses, only have 3 animals, and he's going to spend 500 rand on that. And with that kind of vaccine, you just have to vaccinate it, and once after some time, you have to throw it away. Then it means the farmer will end up losing 17 doses or so. So with that kind of a system whereby we promote unity, is how we can say, oh, it's 20 doses, you have 3, you have 5, and so forth. How about you pay per dose? And that's how the system can work for them to be able to prevent for diseases.
Now, we all know how agriculture is not a one-size-fits-all.
Definitely.
And so you've had scenarios where you go to the same area, or even 2 complete different areas, but these guys farm with the exact same animal. But the scenarios are not the same. So how would you take care of that kind of situation?
Okay, most of, let's say, even if a farm next to the other one neighbor, as long as the management is not the same, you can farm with the same breed, but the management also plays a huge role. If, for instance, when we look into like carrying capacity of an area, you find a farmer, let's say this side they have the carrying capacity, they can put, let's say 6 LSU. When you say 6 LSU, it's more like a matured animal that weighs 450 kg can be able to graze for that area for a period of a year. So you find that this side, maybe there are a lot of bushes or trees, and then also maybe that particular farmer doesn't maybe practice debushing, and also maybe he was not, or maybe banning or not banning. Those are the management aspect. Or also you find that maybe the farmer was overgrazed in that particular camp. So it means already the management is going to be different. And then that farmer will say, in this area, I can put maybe 10 animals. You find that this one putting 10 animals where the other one can put only 6 animals. And they think that everything's the same. When you get there, you find that the body condition of those animals, they are not in the same.
Not in the same.
And the problem about animal that is having a poor body condition, that animal may not be able to conceive because bulls, they don't like the exactly.
Yeah.
And also the immune system is being compromised because if you get to winter with such a kind of animal, when the cold weather gets there, then you're going to have a problem. So that's where the education part has to be there to say, okay, we are in the same area, but management, it's something that makes us to be unique.
So, like, I want to know, as a farmer now, why is it a good idea for me to join an organization such as the organization that you work for? What benefit would it do for me?
Okay, from our side, actually, we are not an organization that farmers they need to be affiliated with. We have different organizations that farmers they can join. But from our side, we just service the industry. Everybody who's a levy payer, participating mainly in the formal value chain, we support them. Because how normally we operate is that a farmer sells their animal in the formal value chain can be through auctions or maybe through direct to the abattoir or maybe to the feedlot, something like that. At the end of the day, there is a levy that has been deducted at the end of the value chain. So we take the money and we make sure that we promote inclusive growth among the industry.
I'm fine now. I'm actually out of words for you because you've impressed me, Otiaga.
Is it?
So, yeah, I want to know, Otiaga. So let's say now I'm a farmer.
Yes.
And I want to farm with Bonsmara. I'm in Limpopo, in, I don't know, quite far away, it's hot.
Quite far away, it's
and
hot.
I want to grow my production in terms of animals.
Okay.
What is the first step you would actually give me advice-wise?
You're a farmer, you want to farm with Bonsmara.
Bonsmara, and I'm in Limpopo. Let's say I'm in Bochum, in Limpopo.
Okay.
You know, it's hot there. And I want to make sure, Hore, my productivity is actually, it grows. I don't just have animals in J.
Okay. First, I'll say there is a variation within a breed. So you can talk about Bonsmara, but you can get a very good Bonsmara and a very bad Bonsmara. So you need to understand those principles. What do I mean by that? If, let's say, you can get a Bonsmara that you just mentioned, maybe that animal is deformed with their legs or maybe, I don't know, something is off on it, that's something that you need to consider. Because if, for instance, you find wolves that maybe they are, maybe the kobegile, something like that, it means that animal won't be able to travel for long distance to look for food. So within that breed that you're going to select, you need to make sure that you choose the right animal within that. Then from there, you have your animals, then you have to look, okay, in around this area, what kind of a diseases am I experiencing? Because a lot of farmers, we have generic health program. Like for instance, myself, I'm based here in Pretoria. I'm not really working in micro area like you said, Kikai?
Bochum.
Bochum. So I might not know in detail the diseases that are occurring in that area. So you need to check with your local state vets or animal health technicians to guide you on the diseases that you can vaccinate for. Then that's a basic, because if you have prevented diseases, you won't be treating as much. So most of our farmers in Tobai Dirangor, they are missing that concept. They want to treat instead of prevent.
Yeah, prevention is better than cure.
Exactly. Then from there, I would say it is important that you take care of that calf. The first 6 to 12 hours is very, very important, because if that calf emisses those antibodies from the mother, then it means it's going to suffer the rest of his life. Then at the end of the day, after 6 to 7 months, when you're about to win your animal, it's in poor condition, or maybe yes. So it means we lose it here on that part. So those are the simple basic principles. You need to get there to check, okay, now this one, let me give it a little bit of attention. Sometimes the first time calvers like the havers. So sometimes they're not experienced. Then they are tired and so forth, so they don't lick their calves and so forth. Then at the end of the day, that calf might end up being dying and there's a high mortality.
Khomotjo Braga, here's a question I want to ask you, because you've seen a lot of things. So what is the thing that you want to see within the agricultural sector concerning small-scale farmers?
Sure, yeah. You know,
this is the face of somebody who's seen stuff. I was just about to sweat, but this is the face of somebody. You know when somebody goes, sure, yeah, then you know.
Sure, yeah, because I think, you know, our farmers sometimes when you get there, you know, one of the bad scenario or the bad situation that I've been I found that the animals, the ticks, a lot of them.
That's a big problem for many farmers.
That's a big problem. And when I look into the cost effectivity, you know, there is one of the pharmaceutical company that made a nice study. They said, if let's say an animal, let's just say a cattle, it has 4 teats. Yeah? So those 4 teats they're supposed to take, let's say, 1 liter of milk per day. And then it means per day you have 4 liters of milk. But now, if now we look at it in this way, for us to be able to win in the right time is 6 to 7 months, which is about 210 days. So that 4 liters of milk, we multiply it by, let's say, 210 days. Ne? So it means at some point, we're going to have, I would say 1 liter times, let's say 210. We have 210 liters, yes. Okay, because generally that's why we say a calf needs to get at least 2 liters in the morning and 2 liters in the evening. And we found that only 1 teat is dead. So it means we have 3 liters of milk per day. Does it make sense? 3 liters of milk per day. So it means now you have lost 1 liter of milk per day.
Per day. For the next
210 days.
Yeah.
Once you miss that 210, for an animal to be able to gain at least 1 kg, it requires about 4 liters of milk. So when we make the calculation, we found that that animal has lost over 50 kg at winning.
And that's you losing money, by the way.
That's you losing money because when you sell your animal at an auction or so forth, you're going to be priced by price per kg. So your animal maybe was supposed to be win at 210 or something like that, then you have lost 50 kg. When we say 50 kg, maybe multiplied by the market price of 35 rand, you have lost over 1,800 rand. So I think our farmers...
All of that is caused by somebody who didn't dip the animals.
And it's so cheap for someone to dip.
Yo.
But now that person is going to lose at least 1,800 rand every time. And we just decide to say, no, I'm going to keep this animal because it's still productive. Maybe keep it for the next 6 calves. Then you're going to lose 1.8, maybe multiply by 6 calves. It's going to be over 8,000 rand. So, and then the same farmer will tell you that I want to venture into feedlot.
Okay.
You see?
Yeah.
So, more especially now when you talk about Saudi Arabia markets being open and so forth, everybody wants to export.
Everybody wants to export now.
But how about we look at back to basic? Let's look at what are you doing, production side. You need to know that you're a calf producer, excel in what you're doing before you venture into something else. So how I want to see my agriculture from looking at the emerging sector, I would say, let us correct the basic. Do things right on the ground. And once we do things right, then we'll be able to get better markets. Because when they sell, let's say, in auction, they'll say auctions, they are discriminating them based on color and so forth, which is not true.
Yeah.
Because when I look at the points for, let's say, for a good quality winner, 80% of those points are based on the management, and 20% is more on breed. When I talk about management, I talk about horns, I talk about castrated animals or not castrated, I talk about sometimes they don't even know even how to brand mark. They over brand mark. And when we look at this portion going down, that's where we get our expensive cut like T-bone, sirloin, and so forth.
Yeah.
So it means if now you have over-branded this portion, the abattoir cannot sell it as it is. Then when you sell your animal, let's say it gets to an auction, we look at that, we're going to penalize you 50 cents or 1 rand based on that.
Over-branding king?
Over-branding, too much.
Oh, too much more.
Yes.
So you do that?
Yes, people do that. Because maybe chuma goes long, yes, it will be visible for Nakwetelele, they try to
go right present like that.
Yes.
So, and that messes up the quality of the meat, basically.
Exactly.
I didn't know that.
Yes, so get it just and again, myself as a animal scientist, the recommendation that I usually make to my farmers is to say, I prefer a single letter branding instead of the one that is combined. Because I've looked at how our animals are growing. In most cases, the Khomotjo, those emerging farmers or future commercial farmers.
Future commercial, let's say that, please. Yeah.
Yes, is that they are not fully round at the back. So the letter will be there on the animal for a long time while you try to move it to one side, to another side to make sure that it's visible. And that letter in most cases, yes. And then that's how they overbrand their animals. So back to basic. And when they get there to the market, they'll say, why Wompit cattle start at this price and mine started at that price?
Yeah, because of that.
Because of that. And again, they do sell those animals with those, let's say, not being dewormed, or maybe still have ticks and so forth, and have other diseases. So when I buy an animal that I'm not sure that it's vaccinated and so forth, I'm taking the risk. So I rather eliminate the risk by penalizing you on the price. So those things are based on management. Based on management. And them, they see it as a market barrier. But to me, I see it as a market requirement.
Yeah,
You
it
need
is
to
a
know,
requirement.
definitely.
If you want good money, you have to sell quality.
You have to sell quality.
So, Khomotjo, I want to know, if I want to go sell my cattle, what are the basic market requirements in order for me to make my money back?
Okay. As I said, there are different production systems. Like now you're talking as a person who's a calf producer. So that means you're producing a calf for the market. You're not a feedlotter. Okay, so you're producing a calf for the market. That calf, when we say it's an ideal cow, there are certain things that you need to look at. Example number one, if let's say I'm a feedlotter, because most of the buyers in auctions and so forth, we buy for feedlot because red meat, it's leading. And most of people, they want our product in the market. So now we have to buy for what? For feedlot. So we want an animal, preferably that doesn't have horns. And if you are a farmer, you are bringing an animal that have horns, you're going to penalize you on the price. To make it practical, let's just say market price is 35 rand per kg. I'm just making it practical. Okay. So you bring an animal that have horns in an auction. It's a winner, it's fine, but it has horns. We are going to say 50 cents or 1 rand. Let's just say 1 rand. Then it means from that 35 rand, you are left with 34 rand.
34 rand.
Okay. The reason why behind the horns is that when this animal, they get to a truck, they now when that animal is going to be sold at some point in an abattoir, they made that cut to be cut that part. So it means the feedlot is going to lose. So they rather do what? Push the price back to you. Okay, so that's also another thing that they need to consider. And then again, the issue of temperament.
Temperament.
Yeah,
okay,
how
so
aggressive your animal is.
Then what now?
I would say, I love Brahmans.
So,
I love Brahmans.
That's what I'm
I love Brahmans, ne? Actually, I support all the breeds, ne? But I love Brahman, ne? So, loving Brahman, the reason why I love Brahman is because it's dominating in the emerging sector, but they don't know how to farm with it. The bottom of the line, I said, there is a variation within a breed. So if you choose the right Brahman, you're not going to have the same temperament.
Of course, yeah.
If you go to shows and whatnot, you do find those nice white Brahmans and so forth.
Those are my favorites.
Exactly. And when you look at our farm on the other side, like they keep those aggressive ones. But also on the other side, I don't really blame them because we have a problem of stock theft. So which is another part that we can't really neglect it. But when you sell your animal at an auction and it gets there, it has temperament that is not ideal. Okay, so we are going to look at that, but the problem is that it's going to injure our animals in the crowd, or maybe it's going to injure itself.
Or the workers.
Then in the red meat industry, what we do, we look at the bruising side. When it starts to crash and what, we're going to make a cut. So it means the feedlot is going to lose on that.
Sure.
Okay, then we have looked into that, the castrated animals. Ne? Previously, is that farmers, they were, I could say, or the feedlotters never preferred animals that were castrated. But with the scientific research that has been developed recently, they've shown that an animal that still have the intact testicles in there, they can still be able to reproduce without affecting the meat quality until it reaches 2 years. Once if you fish at 2 years going to that side, the meat start to be more tougher. So it means if you're bringing an animal that is not castrated at the right age, you're going to get your premium price. Does it make sense?
It makes sense.
Okay. Then you have looked.
It sounds like I'm just losing money here. Go on.
Exactly. So those points, remember there, that's how they're going to determine on how they're going to start your price. You are bringing an animal now, maybe it's a winner that is 6 to 7 months, you have castrated it. Because of what I've just said, you're going to deduct maybe 1 rand from that. You're dropping the price. Then again, we look into the parasites. So if you're bringing an animal that has ticks, that shows, let's say, signs of palafalaria. And palafalaria is a disease sometimes of, I could say, it's an meat or something's been scratched in around there.
Oh, yes, I've seen that, yeah.
Yes, transmitted by flies in most cases. So if we see such animal with go auctioning, then we know that this one is not parasite-free. Then we're going to penalize you on the price. So those are the things. Then again, we need also animal that preferably feedlotter prefer animal that weighs between 200 and 240, not more than 250. And that is a mistake that most of our future commercial farmers, they're doing. They win, let's say, 180. Then they say, oh, the feedlots, they want good animals with high weights.
Yeah.
What they do, they take money in their own pockets, they put there with feed and so forth, they pump those animals, they get to 280. With their own money. When they get there, because it's over 250, we are going to penalize them on price.
Why don't you want an animal that weighs, bro? I thought you guys want meat. What's the reason behind that?
The reason behind it is that we want an animal that is not younger than 200 and not more than 250. Because if, let's say, now you're going to take an animal that is more than 250, it means you're going to have a shorter period when we put it in a feedlot. And feedlot are not going to make money out of it.
Yeah, no, Hashem. That's why I'm not a farmer.
That's why you're not a farmer. As a farmer, I think I usually tell my farmers, you need to be a risk taker.
Absolutely.
You need to take, it's a situation of taking 2 million, put it on the ground, and believing
and
that you're going to get it back.
back.
Yes, because when we look into such things, and then some people, they say, okay, now I have maybe 10 winners, they take them to auction as group as they are. I don't know, with my experience, I have a situation of those poor ones they're trying to cover. And when they bid on them. So those are the requirements at the auction. They want to say, okay, guys, how about you take your 5 good quality ones, you put them aside, and your poor ones, and then they're going to make an average.
Yeah.
Yes. So those are some of the important things that our farmers, they tend to miss. Even yesterday when I was visiting one of the farmer, he said the same thing, that auctions, they are discriminating us on the price and so forth. I started to pile up these market requirements.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, he said, you know your story. And thank you.
This guy needs his own show. He needs his own show, Buffett. I've been on a lot of farming shows and whatnot. This I'm fit. By Kgomotjo fit. So I want to know now that you have all those requirements.
Yes.
What is the main thing that many farmers that you deal with struggle with in terms of increasing their production? The main thing that you've seen, I've been seeing this too many times now.
Okay. Most of our farmers, in most cases, a situation in nutrition.
But the problem is they can't afford. Most of these guys can't afford to feed the animal the best, the best food, or some of them don't even have ground to graze. That's another problem.
Okay. I do understand that point, ne? But the situation is that most of our farmers, they leave their animals in around winter. It's just normal for them animals to lose condition. But if you start to supplement your animals as early as possible, those animals, they'll have less requirements. This thing is on a limit. If a farmer, if we're not then you become thirsty for water, right? And then when you get a chance, you're going to drink a lot of water. But if now you just drink a cup of water, and so forth, a glass of water all the time, you're just going to drink according to your own requirement. Okay, so if now you as a farmer, you don't supplement your animals before it becomes, let's say, too dry, then you're going to spend a lot of money.
Supplementation in terms of leaks?
Yes, supplementation in terms of leaks. Let's say specifically, let's look into, let's say, winter leak. Yes, protein leak. So around that time, then you find a farmer, now they just get there, they're just going to buy 30 blocks, they put it there, and they have maybe 20 animals. And they're going to eat it, then that's all. But now the situation is this. If now the animal is in poor condition, that animal, you won't be able to get a calf or to get a bull. Once it doesn't get a bull, you're not being a productive farmer. Because accordingly, we say an animal should calve what? Each and every year.
Yeah.
And if also, one of the things is that farmers, they don't keep records. So they think that if an animal calves this year in January and then calves next year around September, then it's still within a year. But in reality, when we look at what we call intercalving period, generally we want to say an animal should get pregnant for a period of 9 months. After these 9 months, a year is 12 months,
12
right?
months, yeah.
Within these 3 months that are remaining, that cow should get a bull. And then that's how it can keep with the consistency. But if now an animal is in poor condition, already you're going to lose your money the following year. Then you're out of the business completely. Because if an animal that doesn't give you any calf, then how are you going to cover your cost?
Yeah,
You put medication, you put everything and so forth. So how I look at it is that the calf that you're going to sell it at 7,000, 8,000 rand, that's maybe 3,000 or 4,000 should go to your production cost. And most of our communal farmers, sometimes they don't see those costs. Some of them, they don't. They say we have hardy breeds, like let's say Ngonis and so forth, which is good. But when you look at those hardy breeds on the other side, they do pay labor each and every month. Even if maybe they say we don't vaccinate, we don't do 1, 2, 3, 4, it's a hybrid, we can survive with this climate change and whatnot.
That's not a good idea, but go on, yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
but they pay what? Labor. It's already a cost to that business. So you need to put money in order to get something else. Once we master that concept, I think either whether you're a subsistence farmer or you are, I don't know, whatever term that we can, small-scale farmer or so forth, you can be successful.
Yes, like, nice.
Very good.
What a good guess.
Yes. Khomotjo, tell me, thank you so much for coming through. Yo, I'm going to get us kolong
Within this short period of time.
No, it was
good.
short, but I'm telling you, it was kolong so.
No, rala
Maybe, yeah, no rala wa utaga, man.
No, thank you so much.
So thank you so much for joining us at I'm a Farmer, guys. I hope you learned as much as I did. I hope you had as much fun as I did. Please subscribe for those of you who haven't subscribed, and hit that like button and share as much as you possibly can, because farming is the future. Thanks for coming through.